She was not even inside the main market. She was in the alley behind it like trash someone had forgotten. Her cage was made from rusted metal bars, just enough to keep her inside. One of her arms was chained to the post. Her clothes were torn, her skin covered in dirt. People walked past her without looking. Some threw spoiled fruit. Some laughed. One child pointed and whispered, "That one smells like the dead." The alien girl did not cry. Her eyes were dry. She had cried everything out months ago. She sat still, like a broken doll. Her head was down. Her body was thin, bones poking through her skin. Her back showed old wounds, some still healing. Her feet were bare. Her tail was covered in cuts. No one asked her name. No one cared. Then came footsteps. Not loud, not quick. Just calm. She didn't look up. The seller nearby stood straighter. "Hey, human," the seller said. "Looking for something strong? I got fighters, workers, guards. Don't look at that one. She's nothing." The human man didn't answer. He kept walking slowly, step by step, toward the cage in the alley. He stopped in front of her. She didn't raise her head. He knelt. Still, she didn't move. The seller walked behind him. "She doesn't talk, doesn't eat much, barely stands. She's broken. I was gonna dump her tomorrow." The man reached into his bag and pulled out a cloth. He pushed it gently through the bars. The girl flinched, but he didn't push it further. "She's dangerous," the seller said. "Might bite. These ones, when they're like this, they go mad." Still, the man stayed quiet. The girl looked up, just for a second. Their eyes met. His eyes were not cruel, not curious, not afraid. Just soft. "You want her?" the seller asked, laughing. "Give me a few coins and take her. You'll regret it later." The man said nothing. He stood up, reached into his pocket, and dropped some coins into the seller's hand. "That's more than she's worth," the seller said, surprised. "She's not trash," the human replied softly. He pulled a small key from the hook beside the cage. The girl watched, confused. Her body shook. She didn't believe this was real. The door opened. She didn't move. The man didn't force her. He just stepped back, waiting. "Come," he said gently. She didn't believe it. He waited longer. Then, slowly, carefully, she crawled out. Her legs were weak. She almost fell. But he didn't laugh. He offered his arm. She stared at it. Then she touched it, just a little. It was warm and strong. They walked away from the cage, step by step. People in the market stared. Some laughed. Some whispered, "Why that one?" A woman said, "He must be blind. Humans are strange," another muttered. "Always saving the wrong ones." But the man didn't stop. He took her to a small ship waiting outside the city walls. It was simple, clean, and quiet. He opened the door. She hesitated. He said, "Inside, it's warm. You don't have to be afraid." She didn't believe him, but her legs were cold and her body was tired. She stepped in. The door closed behind her. She jumped. "No chains," he said softly. "No collars, just rest." She looked around. A soft couch. Clean floor. No cages, no whips. No loud alarms. Her hands touched her own skin still, covered in dust. He opened a small door and pointed. "You can wash there. Fresh water." Then he placed a folded cloth on a table. "Clothes. For you." She stared at the clothes, her mouth opened, but no words came out. He didn't expect a thank you. He walked to the pilot seat and sat quietly. She stood in the middle of the room, too shocked to move. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like an object. She felt noticed. She turned her head slightly. The human was not watching her. He wasn't waiting for anything. He was just there, silent, safe. And for some strange reason, she felt a tear form in her eye. Just one, but it was real. The girl stood in the middle of the ship, still not believing she was free. Her hands trembled. Her breathing was shallow. She waited for the trick, the order, the command that always came after a moment of kindness. But the human did not speak. He simply sat at the pilot seat, adjusting buttons quietly, giving her space. He did not look back at her, even once. The silence confused her more than pain ever had. After a long moment, she finally took one careful step toward the small door he had pointed at earlier. It was slightly open. Warm steam slipped out. Inside, lights were soft, not harsh like the slave camps. There was a small basin filled with clean, warm water. Soap sat on the side. A towel, fresh and white, hung neatly. She stared at everything as if it was forbidden. Her fingers touched the basin. She pulled back quickly. The water was warm, something she hadn't felt in months. Slaves were usually hosed with cold water, not washed. She touched it again, slower this time. Then she looked at the door, making sure the man was still not watching. He wasn't. He had not moved an inch. She stepped inside and closed the door, slowly, afraid it might slam and make him angry. But it closed quietly, like everything in the ship. She took off the torn cloth around her body. Her ribs showed. Her skin was covered in bruises, dirt, and old wounds. She didn't look at her reflection in the small metal mirror. She didn't want to remember what she had become. Her hand went into the water. It was warm. She lowered her arm, then her shoulder, then her whole body, sitting slowly inside the basin. The warmth wrapped around her like a blanket she had forgotten. Her breath shook. She closed her eyes. For a few seconds, she let herself feel safe. But suddenly, a memory hit her. Someone had once pushed her underwater, holding her head down. She gasped and pulled herself out, shaking. Water splashed across the floor. She waited for the door to burst open. She waited for shouting, for hands grabbing her. Nothing happened. The ship stayed quiet. The human stayed quiet. She looked around again. Slowly, she picked up the soap and rubbed it on her arm. The dirt began to fall away, water turning brown. She scrubbed harder, harder, like she wanted to erase the months of shame stuck to her skin. Her tears mixed with the water, and she didn't even realize she was crying. When she finally stood up from the basin, she felt lighter and scared at the same time. She grabbed the towel and wrapped it around herself. It was soft, too soft, like clouds. She put on the clothes he gave her. They fit loosely, but felt clean, safe. Then she looked in the small metal mirror. For the first time, she saw something she didn't expect. A person, not a slave, not trash, just someone. Her throat tightened. She took a deep breath and opened the door. The human man was still at the pilot seat, fixing something on his screen. He didn't turn around. He didn't stare. He didn't comment on her new clothes or her washed skin. He simply said, "Food is on the table. Eat whenever you want." His voice was gentle, calm. She looked toward the table. A bowl of hot soup waited. It steamed softly, smelling warm and comforting. Beside it were fruits, fresh ones, not rotten, and a small cup of water. She stepped closer, but stopped halfway. Her hands shook. She was scared to touch it. Food like this was never free. She whispered, voice broken from silence, "For me." The man finally turned. He didn't smile too big, didn't move too fast, just nodded. "Yes, for you." She waited for the rest. Usually, after 4, you came. If you obey, if you serve, if you kneel. But he said nothing more. She looked at the bowl again. Her stomach growled softly. She sat down slowly, like she expected a trap. She lifted the spoon and took one tiny sip. Warm, gentle, real, She closed her eyes and took another sip, and another. Tears slipped down her cheeks without a sound. She covered her mouth, afraid he would see her cry, but he didn't turn. He respected her tears. He respected everything she did. When she finished eating, she whispered something so soft, even she barely heard it. Why? The man looked at her with calm eyes. Because someone should have treated you kindly a long time ago. She stared at him. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not once. And for the first time since she had been caged, she felt something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. The room was quiet. The human had not spoken much after dinner. He simply told her, "You can rest here. I'll be in the front room." Then he walked away and left her alone with soft lights and a bidon actual bed, not a cold floor or a metal crate. She stood near it, frozen. Beds like this belonged to people. She didn't feel like a person. Her hand brushed the sheets, clean, warm. Her heart beat faster. Her mind screamed, "Trap." In her past, soft things always led to hard pain. Still, her legs were weak, her body sore, her bones begged for rest. She sat on the edge of the bed slowly, like it might disappear if she moved too fast. Her hands stayed on her lap. She stared at the door. Minutes passed, nothing. No commands, no locks, no shouting. The ship gently hummed, almost like it was breathing. She pulled the blanket up, unsure if she was allowed. But still no one stopped her. She lay down, tense, her eyes wide open. She waited for the lights to go off suddenly. She waited for chains to drop from the ceiling. She waited for a boot to hit her side. But all she heard was silence. Her body didn't know how to relax. Every part of her expected pain. But it didn't come. Slowly, her eyelids grew heavy. Not from drugs, just from peace. And before she realized it, she drifted into sleep. The scream woke her, not hers. His, a sharp cry from the front room. She sat up, heart pounding. It wasn't anger. It wasn't rage. It was fear. Deep, wounded fear. She crept out of the bed, bare feet soft on the ship's floor. The door to the front room was half open. She peeked inside. The human lay on the couch, covered in sweat. His chest moved fast. His face twisted in pain. He cried against something about fire. Something about children. Something about I tried. It was a nightmare. He was dreaming of something terrible. She stood there, unsure. No one had ever comforted her. She had never comforted anyone. Her instincts told her to go back, to stay away, to hide. But her heart whispered something else. She stepped closer. Kneeling beside him, she reached out her hand. She touched his arm gently. His eyes shot open. He gasped. She didn't pull away. She simply whispered, "It's not real." He blinked, chest still heaving. Then he nodded. "I'm sorry," he said, voice rough. She shook her head. "You saved me. I should thank you." He looked at her carefully, as if seeing her truly for the first time. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She hesitated. She hadn't said her name in years. It felt like ash in her throat. "Sella," she whispered. "Sella," he repeated, like it was the most sacred word in the universe. Then he sat up, slowly. "I'm Tom." She sat on the floor beside him. He looked down at his hands. "I have bad nights sometimes." She nodded. "Me too." They didn't speak for a while after that. Just sat together in the low hum of the ship. Finally, he said, "You can go back to bed. You're safe." She stood. But before leaving, she asked, "Will you be okay?" He smiled a tired, honest smile. "Yeah, now I will." She nodded, then walked back to the room. The bed still waited. This time, she slid under the blanket with less fear. She closed her eyes. The air felt warmer. The silence felt kinder. For the first time in years, she didn't fall asleep because her body gave up. She fell asleep because she felt safe. The next morning, the ship door buzzed. Sela flinched. She had just finished folding her blanket, trying to keep the room as neat as possible. She rushed toward the corner, her body reacting out of fear. No matter how much peace she had felt last night, her body remembered years of training. When the door opens, danger enters. Tom stood near the panel. Calm, relaxed. "It's just a guest," he said, sensing her fear. Guest? She didn't understand that word anymore. Tom pressed the door release. It opened with a hiss. A tall woman stepped inside, dressed in rich armor and smooth silver robes. Her skin was flawless, her face cold like a statue. Gold rings lined her fingers. Her eyes scanned the ship like it was beneath her. And then, she saw Sela. The woman's mouth curled into a cruel smile. "Oh, that one," she said, voice sharp. "You actually picked her." Sela lowered her gaze, ashamed. Her hands clenched. Tom didn't smile. He simply said, "She has a name." The woman laughed. "She used to be auctioned like meat in my brother's market. I remember that tail covered in flies. Look at her now, pretending to be." "What? A passenger?" "She's free now," Tom replied. "Free?" The woman scoffed. "Nothing from that cage is ever free. Once dirt, always dirt." Sela turned away. She didn't want to cry in front of her. The woman pulled something from her cloak and tossed it onto the floor. It landed with a hard clang. A silver collar. "You forgot this?" she sneered. "Put it on her. You'll need it when she turns on you." They always turn. Sela couldn't breathe. Her eyes stared at the collar like it was poison. Her whole body shook. Tom didn't move. Then slowly he picked up the collar. Sela backed away, but instead of walking toward her, he walked to the ship's small heat unit. He placed the collar inside, pressed a button. Foosh! The collar burst into orange flames. The rich woman's smile vanished. "Are you mad?" She's worth more," Tom said firmly. Sela's knees gave out. She slid down the wall, eyes wide. The woman hissed, "This softness will cost you. You think you're saving her? She'll bring you ruin." Tom walked closer to her, his voice calm but sharp. "I didn't ask for your advice. She's not your prisoner anymore." The woman narrowed her eyes. "And what is she, then?" "A pet." Tom turned to Sela. She looked so small, sitting on the floor, her hands over her mouth, her breath shaking. He knelt beside her. "Okay?" And with full seriousness, he said, "She's royalty." The rich woman laughed again, but there was something weak behind it this time. Tom looked back at her. "Leave." For a second, the woman seemed unsure. No one ever ordered her to leave. But the fire in his voice made her step back. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the ship. The door closed. Silence. Sela sat still, frozen. Tom remained beside her. "I didn't mean to scare you," he said softly. She shook her head. "No one has ever done that." For me, he gave a small smile. They should have. She looked at the spot where the collar had burned. "Why do you care?" she whispered. Tom didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Because when I found you, I didn't just see a broken girl. I saw someone still alive, still fighting to breathe. And that's not weakness, Sela. That's strength." Her throat tightened. She had no words. No training had prepared her for this kind of kindness. He stood slowly. "There's something I want to show you tomorrow." She looked up. "What?" "A place that belongs to you," he said. "Even if the world forgot, it's still yours." She didn't understand. But in that moment, she believed him. That night, Sela didn't sleep. She sat in the quiet room, staring at her own arm. Slowly, she pulled up the sleeve and looked at the strange mark burned into her skin, a dark shape near her shoulder. shaped like a triangle with a circle inside. Most people thought it was a slave mark, but it wasn't. Not really. It was her family's royal crest, twisted, branded by fire, turned into a sign of shame by her own sister. It used to mean firstborn. It used to mean next in line. Now, people whispered it meant failure. She touched it gently. It still hurt, after all these years, not the skin, but the meaning. Her sister had taken everything: power, name, voice, but not her soul. That, somehow, had survived. The next morning, Tom walked into the room holding a small metal box. It looked old, scratched, locked. He placed it gently on the table. Sela looked at it, then at him. "I found this years ago," he said, "in the ruins of a crashed vessel deep in the wastelands of Elarensis. The ship was burned. Nothing survived, but this box was sealed tight." He slid it toward her. "I never knew why I kept it," he said. "But yesterday, when you showed me your mark, something clicked." Sela hesitated, then touched the box. It felt warm, familiar. There was no keyhole, just a symbol on top. The same triangle and circle as her brand. Her hand moved on its own, tracing the lines. Suddenly, click, the box opened. Inside was a small stone, polished like glass. It glowed faintly blue. Round it, thin silver wires curled like roots. And beneath it, a folded cloth holding a nameplate. Sela gasped. She knew that stone. It was called a heartlight. Every royal heir of her people carried one. Only 6 existed, each one bound to blood. Her father gave her one when she turned 7. She wore it proudly till the day soldiers tore it from her neck as she screamed. She picked it up now with shaking hands. It still remembered her. The glow grew stronger. Tom watched silently. She opened the folded cloth, reading the symbols. Her name, her true name, Selethari, daughter of House El-Saruan. Her chest tightened. Her breath shook. The world spun. Tom stepped forward. That crashed ship. I think it was carrying royal property. Maybe even a fleeing guard. I didn't know what I'd found, but I couldn't throw it away. Sela looked at him, eyes wide. "Oh, you held on to this all this time?" He nodded. "Why?" He shrugged gently. It felt important, like it was waiting for someone. She looked down again, holding the heartlight close to her chest. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "It was mine," she whispered. "They took it. They took everything." Tom didn't ask for details. He didn't need to. The pain in her voice said enough. She closed the box and held it tightly, like it might vanish. Then she asked, "You said, this place belongs to me?" He nodded. "We're going to your homeworld," I checked. "It's not far now." Her hands tightened on the box. "Why are you doing this?" She asked again. "Why go so far for someone like me?" He smiled, just a little. "Because someone once saved me. And I didn't believe I deserved it either." She blinked. His eyes looked older when he said that. She understood, then they weren't so different. Both broken by war. Both betrayed. Both searching for something. He reached into his coat and pulled out a simple necklace, a leather cord with a small metal pendant. "I made this," he said, "long ago when I was trying to remember who I was." He handed it to her, I think. "You don't need to remember. I think you already know." Sela looked down at the heartlight, the pendant, and then her reflection in the metal box. No more dirt, no more chains. Just a girl holding her past in one hand, her future in the other. "Oh," she whispered softly, "I want to go home." Tom nodded. "Then let's go." The ship broke through the clouds of El-Saruan Prime. Sela stood near the window, her eyes locked on the capital city below. It looked the same as it did in her childhood: tall spires, glowing towers, floating bridges. But everything felt colder, sharper. She hadn't T stepped foot on this planet since the night soldiers dragged her from her room and branded her like an animal. Beside her, Tom stood quietly. He didn't give speeches. He didn't push her. He only said, "Whatever happens down there, you choose what you are. No one else." She held the heartlight close, its faint blue glow steady against her chest. And with one deep breath, she whispered, "Let them see I survived." They landed on the outskirts of the Royal Square. As they stepped out, gasps echoed across the platform. Guards reached for weapons. Officials froze mid-step. Merchants and nobles alike turned, their eyes wide with disbelief. It was her, the lost girl. The exiled one? Dirty, branded, forgotten. But she didn't look broken anymore. She walked with quiet power, shoulders back, head high, eyes focused. Tom followed silently behind her, not as a bodyguard, not as a savior, but as her chosen witness. The royal court door opened, and out stepped her sister, clad in gold armor, her presence loud and sharp. She raised her chin, sneering. "So, you return, like a beggar, hoping for scraps." Sela didn't flinch. "I return," she said clearly, as the rightful daughter. The crowd murmured. Her sister laughed, stepping forward. "You're nothing but ash, Sela. I burned your name from the records." Sela reached into her coat and pulled out the glowing heartlight. The glow silenced everything. Even the wind stopped. One of the elder advisors gasped. That's the first stone." Another one whispered, "Only the bloodline can hold it. It would reject a thief." Sela placed it gently in her palm. The glow grew stronger. People stared. Then she spoke again, louder this time. "You stole my crown. You buried me in shame. But this stone remembers me. And now, so will they." Her sister stepped forward, drawing a blade. "You dare challenge me?" After all these years, Tom moved. Just one step. The guards raised their weapons, but Sela raised her hand. No. She looked her sister in the eyes. "I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to end you. With truth." She turned to the people. "I was thrown away, beaten, sold. I ate from trash and slept in chains, and yet I stand here. Not because I crawled back, but because one human treated me like I mattered." Tom lowered his eyes slightly as the crowd turned to him. "I was less than dirt, and he called me royalty." She raised the heartlight high. "So I say this, a crown means nothing if it sits on a liar's head, but if you want a leader who knows pain, who knows hunger, and who will never turn her back on the forgotten, let me serve." Silence. Then one of the guards dropped to one knee, then another, and another. Her sister stared in disbelief. "No, nitrogen monoxide. You can't," but the people had made their choice. They turned from the false queen, and toward the girl once covered in dirt. Sela stepped up the stairs of the throne platform. Tom didn't follow. He stayed back, arms crossed. This was her moment. She turned to face the crowd, and slowly sat down on the edge of the throne, not in pride, but in peace. Later that night, Tom stood at the ship, preparing for departure. Sela came quietly, dressed now in simple robes. No crown, just the pendant he gave her, and the heartlight still glowing faintly. "You're really leaving?" she asked. He nodded. "I was never meant to stay." She walked closer. "You gave me more than freedom, Tom. You gave me myself." He smiled. "You were always there, just buried." She placed something in his hand, a small stone. A second heart like new, but glowing. "For when you forget who you are." He blinked, surprised. Sela stepped back. "This isn't goodbye. It's just, see you again." He looked at her one last time. Girl once caged, now queen, now whole. And with a small nod, he boarded the ship. As the engines lifted, The crowd below bowed not to a throne, but to the girl who turned shame into light.